Well, being from northern New South Wales and therefore doing most things in Queensland, I'm always interested in what the latest is up there. And something which isn't going away is the fact that the Queensland Treasurer this year changed Queensland's coal royalty regime. The Queensland Treasurer, Cameron Dick, introduced this $1.2 billion hike in the rate of coal royalties, despite saying prior to the Queensland state election in 2020 that he wouldn't introduce new taxes. He actually said at a press conference in Cairns, quote, "There won't be any increased taxes. We have said that very clearly from the start. No new taxes from the Labor government if we are re-elected," unquote. Is it any wonder why people hate politicians? Now, not only has the Queensland government upset the coal industry, but they've also managed to upset the Japanese government. In a speech to the University of Queensland, Shingo Yamagami warned some companies were already questioning if Queensland would continue to be the safe and predictable place to invest that they once knew. On Queensland's new royalty regime, Mr. Yamagami said, quote, "This will have a huge impact on mining companies as bottom line, including Japanese companies that have operated in Queensland for decades," unquote. An intervention like this from an ambassador over a state government policy would have to be pretty rare and shows the severity of such a decision. My next guest is the Queensland LNP Senator Matt Canavan. He's always got a view or two on these things. Thanks for joining me, Matt.
Good to be with you, Jake.
Look, I'm so amused by the fact that there are politicians out there who are fixated on ripping up the coal industry when it's the revenue we receive from coal exports which build our roads, our schools, our hospitals, and dare I say, funds the social welfare bill. Matt, is that a pretty fair assessment?
Well, Jake, the coal industry has been one of the big industries that's built Queensland. Before we had the big mining boom of the 60s and 70s, Queensland was a little bit perhaps behind the times, if you like. It didn't have a big metropolitan city. I grew up in Brisbane of the 1980s, and even then it was still sort of seen as a large country town. It's not that anymore, and a big part of that is because of industries like the coal industry, which are headquartered in Brisbane and don't just provide all those jobs underground or in a mine. There's also lots of jobs in big office towers working for big Japanese investment companies, big mining companies, lawyers, accountants. All these people have their jobs thanks to that industry. Now, to get an industry like that, you've got to attract lots of investment. And you do not do that by slapping on big new taxes. A tax is just a way of stopping business. That's what it is. And particularly this tax, this is not, we all recognise that we need to get a fair share of the wealth that's owned by all of us in our coal, in our copper and all of these things. But this tax is 40% of revenues over $300 a tonne. 40% of revenues, not of profits, 40% of just the straight revenue, and then they've got to pay corporate tax on top of that. So this is not a fair share. This is highway robbery. And that's why the Japanese government is so upset, because they have seen Queensland as a safe and predictable partner. They partnered with Joh Bjelke-Petersen to build these mines in, as I say, the 1960s and 70s. They powered Japan for half a century. But if we keep treating people like this, the next time they go to build a mine, they won't be coming here to Australia. They'll go to Russia. They'll go to Southeast Asia. They'll go to Africa, because we are coming right down to the pack here with decisions like this. We should be up front with our business partners. This sort of cloak and dagger stuff from the tricky Dick, Treasurer of Queensland, is how we go back to being a third world country.
Well, that's